Hey guys, welcome to our channel. This is going to be our first episode of Crime Couple, and on this first episode we are going to be diving into the mysterious death of Rey Rivera. This is something that caught our interest right away, and we wanted to make sure that we put it as our first episode on this channel, and everything about it from beginning to end just does not make sense. This completely gave us a headache thinking about all the possibilities, the questions that would be left after for the family and for anyone that read about it. So I hope you all enjoy. Please make sure to follow along. So Rey Rivera was born on June 10th in 1973. He was born to his parents, Maria and Angel, and then him and his wife, Allison, had recently moved to Baltimore for a job position. He got a job offered to him by a longtime friend. They were high school buddies, college friends, and his name was Porter Stansberry, and he had a business for finance, which was Stansberry and Associates. So he had him come on, and Rey was working as a writer and videographer for them, which was his passion and what he did and what he enjoyed.
On May 16th, 2006, Allison, his wife, was scheduled for a business trip in Richmond, Virginia. That morning was like every other morning. He made her breakfast, she kissed him goodbye, and he carried her suitcase to the car. So she gets to the hotel in Richmond around 6 p.m. and decides to call her husband, Rey. At this time, he doesn't answer, which she doesn't think is too abnormal, but she hadn't spoken to him all day and she kind of just brushed it off. So Rey and Allison had a house guest named Claudia. It is Allison's associate, and she was staying there for a few days. We're not really sure why. So Allison attempted to call Claudia, and Claudia had said around 6:30 that night, Rey got a phone call, exclaimed, "Oh shit," and walked outside the house. So there was no reason why he would have left, because he was not working downtown at this time. He was working primarily from home.
He had a lot of stuff that he was able to do from home, but the manner in which he ran out of the house, he was just kind of picked up and left. Didn't really grab anything, didn't have anything that he would expect to be gone for a while, and he ran out of the house in minimal clothes and flip-flops. So nothing really made sense about that either.
Okay, so Allison hadn't heard from him all night. When she woke up in the morning, she was really concerned. So Claudia had actually called her. So she called her back and said that Rey had not been home all night. So at this time, Allison's kind of freaking out. She cancels her trip and decides to go home.
Very normal behavior for him.
Yeah, on his way home, or on her way home, she was calling friends, family, whoever she could think of to see if anyone had heard from Rey, but nobody had. And like we said, there was no indication that he was going to be gone for a long time. I think he had a bag of chips.
Yeah, he had left some stuff out, like food he was eating
and stuff. Okay, so the family is really concerned. They do not contact the police at this time, but they continue to search and look for days. And then finally, after 2 days of him missing and unable to reach him, I think they checked the bank account, his cell phone.
Yeah, they went through like regular stuff where people might use it.
And there was nothing.
No money taken out, no card used. And so after doing their own bit of running around and looking with their own family and friends, and mind you, when they did this, they called up different family members, and people came from all over. So they're in Baltimore. They had people come in from Puerto Rico, Orlando, Colorado, I think they said, come all over to help look for him. And so they were actually driving around, and someone said they thought they spotted his wife's, Allison's, car coming. Her parents spotted her black SUV on a parking structure. And they kind of passed by like, no, that's not it. And they're like, no, that's the car.
Well, and so she was talking to the police, and they're like, is there anything weird happening? So Allison had reported to the police in their questioning that the alarm had went off 2 nights in a row. Monday night, they came by and then said it was probably a squirrel that tripped the alarm, nothing to worry about it. So then the next night, Tuesday, which is the morning he disappeared or didn't come back, they came and said that a window might have been
tampered with.
So I guess Ray was downstairs searching through the house, and Allison saw him more frightened than she'd ever seen him. And he's a big guy. Nothing really intimidates him. He was deathly afraid of what he was going to find or if someone was coming for him.
They were saying he was outright scared, and she had never seen him this scared before about anything. And mind you, both of these alarm times went off at the same time, 1 o'clock in the morning.
Right.
Both the Monday and Tuesday night.
So as the family is continuing to canvass Baltimore, they had a break in the case after 6 days. So they found the SUV, and on the SUV there was a parking ticket dated for May 17th. So they know the vehicle had been there since that time. After finding the SUV, a group of friends decided to get a better vantage point of the city. I think they went on the parking structure and were kind of searching around to see if there were any more clues. And they noticed a hole in the roof of I guess it was an unused conference room at the Belvedere Hotel. So Stansbury Associates is very, very close proximity to this parking structure and the Belvedere Hotel. It was like right in the same block. So they found the hole in the roof, and then they decided to go to the Belvedere to kind of see if that had anything to do with Ray missing.
And at that point, then they decided to go ahead and call the authorities as well. So they started over, at that point, a little bit more investigation process, find out, hey, there's a hole in the roof adjacent to this building, which is right here. And it's just weird coincidence that his car is abandoned here for so many days.
Right. So they end up getting access to the room, and the smell is terrible. They know the body has been there for a few days because they can tell by the decomposition and then obviously the smell of the room. The body was lying face down, prone. And from the looks of it, it didn't even look like a person. He had sustained multiple injuries, head, skull fracture, pelvic fractures, bones were sticking out.
He had multiple organs that had completely ruptured and blown. He had, so many broken pieces in his legs.
But at this time, they had no reason to suspect foul play. It looks like he just jumped off the Belvedere and landed in there. So when they were searching around, they ended up finding his glasses, his cell phone, flip-flops, and his keys. But the weird thing is from that 118 feet, is that what it is?
Something like around 120 feet drop, his cell phone and his glasses.
Nothing was wrong with them.
Unharmed.
Not a scratch. But the flip-flop, they had said that it appeared that he was dragged because one of the toes had a drag mark and the other Y-shaped flip-flop was pulled off.
Yeah, like a thong-shaped flip-flop. One of the tethers that attaches to the back was torn apart.
Right. So he sustained a slew of injuries, 24 broken ribs, 2 punctured lungs, damage to his liver, and the ME at that time said his injuries were consistent with a fall from a high building.
Yeah. So then they started looking around, though, because as the investigation went on, it didn't really make too much sense. Because some of the
angles and how he would have fallen and how was it? What was it? He would have had to be running at 11 miles per hour.
Yeah, so there was something like... So they talk about overall the distance from the top of the Belvedere to where he was is about like 43 feet. So it's about 43 feet outwards that he would need to go in order to reach...
To land where he did.
Not to mention the height of where he is to drop. So he would have to be running at almost like a full sprint.
In flip-flops.
Yeah, so they said the only way someone could do that is in a full sprint in athletic shoes and at an average fit male. But he wasn't in that circumstance. He had flip-flops on and God knows what he was wearing. So they said his max speed would have been like less than half of that.
Right.
And it just wouldn't be physically possible for him to run fast enough, jump off of the top of that building and land where the hole was.
And not to mention, isn't he super afraid of heights?
Yeah. So that was one thing his wife said. He is like his biggest fear.
Afraid.
Heights. Can't do it.
Right. So what are the other... They said that there was a ledge that was, I think, a few stories down.
Yeah, so
the ledge was like small and ornate because the building's old.
Well, around the sides of the building, on the sides of the windows of the building, they have ledges there, right? And obviously enough where you could stand, but not enough to be comfortable at. The biggest issue with that is when they started looking into those, the access to those ledges are only available through the condominiums in that hotel. Now, the condominiums are
and the
privately
office
owned.
Buildings, and they're privately owned. And the windows are half the size of a normal window. So imagine a 6'5"
260-pound guy trying to fit through that window, stand up on a ledge.
It's not going to work.
So the other option we were talking about, well, what if he was to jump from the parking structure down to there? Well, from the parking structure down to where the hole was only 20 feet. And
you'd have injuries, but
you
not
might have a broken leg or something,
what
or a
he
wrist,
sustained.
but you're not going to plow through a roof, go through the roof, and do all that damage to your body. It's just not going to happen. It's not feasible.
Right. So after seeing all this, the ME, their final ruling was undetermined. They couldn't find out and prove a homicide. They couldn't prove a suicide. But on the contrary, the police were so adamant about closing the case and it being a suicide.
They went in there with the mindset that it was a suicide before they even were able to rule it was a suicide.
Right. And Michael Breyer was his name. Breyer was one of the investigators at the police department. I guess he was the only one that believed he could actually have been murdered or pushed or, staged scene.
So later we did find out he was actually removed off the case. And that
3 weeks after it started.
3 weeks after it. And so, we, from doing some research and watching some things, his wife, Allison, was very upset about that. I think a lot of them were very upset about that, including the officer who got removed. It just seems very unsure.
Yeah. And if it were a suicide, most people who attempt suicide and follow through with it, they don't want the family left in wondering. So she's like, okay, if it was a suicide, there has to be a note, right? So in all her searching, she turned the house upside down. She found a small note that had a lot of information on it, but it was shrunk down to fit into like a 4x4 piece of paper.
It was very small, folded up. It was like hidden. And none of it made sense. It was all just like rambling on. It had different like movies that he liked, actors, Hollywood actors that he liked. Like different word groupings,
and there were phrases referring to the Freemason.
Mm-hmm.
So it was a very cryptic note, and it had jumbled phrases and was referring to secret societies. Allison was concerned, so they sent a letter to the FBI, and the FBI had said, although it is very cryptic and odd and not clear at all, they said that there was no suicide intent in that letter.
There's some interesting things about it though. So there's been a couple of theories about what it's for. Some thought it was code. Some did think it was messages from the Freemasons. There was someone that had thought that the way that the picture was laid out for the for how the note was, it spelled out the word help.
Right.
But even in all those circumstances, none of it fit anything to actually make sense. And even with the FBI team looking in for code, they couldn't figure it out. There was no reason or systematic point to the note.
So if Ray didn't want to kill himself, is there a reason or somebody who would want to kill him? As we talked about before, during his last day that he went missing, he received a phone call. Claudia heard him answer the phone call and then just leave the house. So they tried to trace that phone call. They found out that it originated from the Stansberry and Associates building where he was employed. So they were unable to get to the direct line because it was on a switchboard, but they knew that it came from that building.
And then it's a little weird, but if you look back at it, something we didn't mention beforehand, that when they were starting to do those initial searches, Porter Stansberry, the owner, he put out a reward of $1,000. He owns this big company. $1,000 is $1,000, but it's not like a crazy
substantial
amount.
At all. It doesn't show you care, in my opinion.
And he put out this as a reward for any information that could lead to finding, Rey Rivera.
Right.
And then later, as soon as the body was found, they put
a gag order.
They put a gag order on
the lawyers of that business put a gag order on the whole company, forbidding them to talk about the case, to answer any media questions, anything. So it's like, what happened to his best friend, Porter Stansberry? Why is he in the dark now? And there was a movie or a show on Unsolved Mysteries that, everybody and their sister was there to support Ray and answer any questions. And this Porter Stansberry, who's supposed to be his best friend, is nowhere to be found. So
it is kind of weird. It makes you have a bad taste in your mouth, a bad feeling about it all, because there's some other points, people thought that this was completely staged.
Well, Porter said, the only reason why I'm not talking is because I was investigated by the cops for such and such fraudulent charges, and I think that they will be biased towards me. But I don't know, if my best friend went missing, I think I would want to help
find him
as much as possible, anything I had to do, so...
at this point, you think about the wife, and she's all over the place. She has a note that doesn't make sense.
Right.
A husband that's dead. She doesn't know how. No one can explain exactly scientifically how he would have committed suicide.
The cops say it's suicide, right? But the ME again says undetermined. So undetermined means they have no idea how he died. We just know he's dead. So Allison was really concerned about that. So she didn't have the officer, Michael Byer, to talk to anymore. So she was investigating, and he told her, listen, Allison, you need to be careful, because obviously if there were people out there to get Ray and you're investigating it and trying to uncover it, they might do the same thing to you. So she goes to the ME and kind of like questions what's going on. Like, can I have any insight in this? And the ME said that his shin bones were not consistent with a fall.
Like the way they broke and or like shattered or whatnot was different than how they would be if they were to be from a regular fall. So to go back over a couple things, he was scared of heights. He was terrified of them. There'd be no business he would be up there, at least at his own will, right?
The angles don't match up.
There's so many inconsistencies with what the reports are. Scientifically, like I said, they're not matching up. The angles, how he was doing up, it doesn't make sense that he would end up where he landed. So
you think of this big, fancy, posh building, you think they would have surveillance, right?
Wrong. They weren't working.
The one on the roof wasn't working, but Allison had went and investigated this, and the manager of the hotel states that they were all working, but the one on the roof was turned off. So I do want to add this. So another thing for people thinking that, he could still get up on the roof. It was extremely hard to get up on the roof. Oh, yeah.
Because this is supposed to be like a ritzy, high-class place. You can't just walk into there,
and go into anywhere. Access.
They said that in order to get up the roof, there was like this back alley.
And you had to know how to get there. Yeah,
there was you had to know how to get there, but there's all these different staircases and doors that were either locked or supposed to be locked that you had to go through in order to get to it.
His brother, Angel, tried to do it. He said, if my brother could do it, I'm going to try to do it. And he couldn't do it.
He couldn't get past the lobby. All right, so in conclusion, the police department deemed this a suicide, even though we know there's something more foul play about this.
It's been 15 years and there's been no justice. And we wanted to be a voice. I know there's a lot of podcasts out there and stuff covering, but it was something we were really interested in, and we kind of wanted it to be our first crime couple episode because it did touch us so much, and we still want to spread awareness and give justice to the family.
Like Ashley said, we want to help bring this to light for people that haven't heard it, because one thing that people always say is someone knows something.
Right.
And it's out there. Someone knows the truth.
Right.
And the only justice for this family is to know the truth and find out exactly what happened.
Right. So thank y'all so much for listening to our first
thank you.
episode. This is our daughter, Raylyn. Ray,
make sure you like and share so other people can hear this as well.
Yeah.
Please comment if you have any questions. Even if you have your own opinions, we'd love to hear about it. So thank you so much for watching.
And give us ideas for future episodes if you have any, because we're just starting out and we'd like this to take off.
So make sure you comment anything else you'd like us to go over, and I hope you have a wonderful day. We both do. All three of us, actually.
Bye. Thank you.
Thank you for watching Crime Couple.